Nine, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Of May, Thoughtful Thursday comes to us from the Bahamas, and we will be hosted by NAPS, the New Providence Association of Public Principal Secondary Schools. Our focus this evening is all about us. Yes, we deserve it. We shall focus on self-care and motivation. We are so delighted that you have joined us. This team of Caribbean educational administrators in what is promised to be a very exciting and provocative evening. I am Eloise Wims and have served as an educator in both the private and public school systems in the Bahamas for a total of 40 years. I am presently the principal at the Government High School. This historic school was established in 1925. Our school is historic in that this school has had the majority of governor generals and prime ministers in the Bahamas graduate from this institution. We are also the magnet school for performing arts. At our school, we boast that we don't do average, but we do awesome. Harcourt.
Good night, colleagues. I am Harcourt McCoy, principal of C.V. Bethel Senior High School in beautiful Nassau, Bahamas. We believe that excellence has a look, a feel, and a sound. At C.V. Bethel Senior High School, good teaching goes on in every classroom, every day. I am president-elect for the New Providence Association of Secondary School Principals with some 21 awesome years in public education. I also serve as adjunct lecturer at the University of the Bahamas in the School of Education. We're so delighted to have this opportunity to share with our Caribbean brothers and sisters on the topic, self-care, being motivated, keeping your momentum. To get started, we will begin with a time of sharing in our breakout rooms.
Awesome. We had a wonderful breakout session in room 3. In the house was the Bahamas, Trinidad and Tobago, and Jamaica, a very, very interactive sessions. And many of our colleagues shared that what they do to stay motivated, they exercise, they enjoy themselves, they make themselves smile. The innovative and intrinsic motivation was excellent. And many of them agreed that they do those things that they enjoy to keep themselves motivated. Harcourt, what was happening in your breakout session?
Well, Eloise, it has been an interesting mix of countries with some interesting habits. Some persons talked about quality relationships with their family and colleagues. Others talked about feeding their spiritual life and keeping themselves centered. We had a host of persons from around the Caribbean. We had a number of Bahamians, but we had Trinidad and Tobago, we had Bermuda. But the one that I think stuck out the most for me was remembering the why. That was really important to staying motivated. The why. Why is it that we've chosen this ministry of education? And so I think it's fair to say that we had a good list of habits or actions that can help keep us at peak performance. At this time, it's my distinct pleasure to introduce our president, Dr. Virginia Romer. She was elected to the position of president of NAPS in September of 2019. She's presently the principal of the A.F. Adley Junior High School with an enrollment of over 900 students. Despite being a principal and the president of NAPS, she finds time to pursue her passion, which is preparing teachers for the teaching profession, and therefore lectures part-time in the education department of the Bahamas Baptist University College. She is an author of 2 books, Experiencing the Goodness of God and Twisted Triangle, which can be purchased on Amazon, by the way. She is a devoted Seventh-day Adventist and a proud mother and grandmother. Please help me welcome Dr. Virginia Romer, our president of NAPS.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Thoughtful Thursday, the first in the month of May. This month, Thoughtful Thursday is coming to you from the beautiful 700 islands and keys of the Bahamas. The Bahamas is a tourist destiny just south of Florida and is known for its sun, sand, its sea, junk canoe, friendliness of its people, and its awesome Bahamian cuisine. We give you choices in islands to visit and to enjoy your vacation. The island of New Providence is where the capital Nassau is located and from where the country is governed. This month, the New Providence Association of Principals of Public Secondary Schools, known as NAPS, has as its theme, leadership, mentoring, and motivating. The 4 presentations this month will focus on areas of the theme such as keeping your momentum through self-care, motivating and mentoring your admin team, motivating and mentoring your entire staff, and succession planning or preparing others to lead. As leaders in our various schools and Ministry of Education, it is our hope that these topics will help you to be a better leader in your territory. Any organization relies on the motivation of employees to move their business forward. Schools are no different. There are teachers and members of staff who are simply and naturally driven and stimulated. Others may have external driving factors that affect their motivation, such as money, possessions, or security. They may not need a pat on the back, per se, to get the job done if they can see the results they want and are driven to go and get them. Then there are those driven by recognition and knowing that their contribution is valued and that they may be rewarded in return for their hard work. Motivation is one of the most frequent topics of interest in employment. Employees want to feel motivated. As a leader, what are you doing to motivate and mentor members of your admin team and general staff? It is important for each of us to remember that at some time, we will move on from the position we are presently holding and someone else will take over. What role would you have played in preparing members of your team to move to the next position? What are you doing to ensure that you are ready for the next position? Are you mentally, physically, and emotionally ready for the next move? All of this is important. From attending the sessions this month, it is our hope that you as a leader will make the necessary adjustments to mentor and motivate those in your care to be good at what they do while making ready for the next level of their career. So commit yourself to tuning in each Thursday during this month and learn how to mentor, motivate, and lead like never before. I invite you to sit back, relax, and enjoy as we look forward to seeing you each session.
Well done, President Roma, and thanks so much for sharing. We as administrators ought to set the example for those under our leadership. And so yes, leading, mentoring, and motivating are three factors that we need to use to motivate our teachers, our support staff, parents, and yes, our nation. Because as you look, the little ones that are with us each day, we are heading to the future. And so if we begin with them, then the candle will be lit and spread throughout. McCoy.
Thanks, Eloise. Good health is not merely the absence of sickness and disease. Health and wellness can be defined as the ability to live life with vitality and meaning. There are 6 dimensions to complete health and wellness. These include intellectual, spiritual, social, emotional, environmental, and of course, the physical. As we go through our COVID-19 realities, all of us have been made more aware of the importance of building strong immune systems and exercising regularly. Colleagues, loosen up that top button, take off that tie and slip off those shoes. Let's welcome Ms. Stephanie Kemp and the AF Adderley Dance Exercise Group with an invigorating moment of movement.
Welcome to AF Adderley Junior High, where we, the staff and support staff of this great institution, have started a workout dance fitness session for the last month. Today was the last day of this month of our workout session. We have allowed the teachers to weigh in to see what they weighed at the beginning of the session. And today was the last weigh-in for this month. And I can tell you, teachers has lost the weight, some of the weight that they were hoping to lose, and we are continuing this great work that we're doing. We're also helping them to eat healthy and to get your body fit and ready for this summer vacation. So I applaud you to come and join us. Get up out of your seat and get ready for this workout session that we're about to do.
What awesome dynamic mobility. Can't you feel it? Didn't you feel like getting up and getting in the move with AF Adley this evening and begin to flex those muscles? An awesome job by AF Adley. Team, this will certainly be an awesome way to build school spirit. So what are you waiting for? Let's get moving. Harcourt.
Thank you, Eloise. I think I recognize a couple of those faces from AF Adderley, but it's a private one between you and I. Dr. Richard B. Adderley is a licensed clinical psychologist who specializes in the area of organizational wellness and public health. Born on the island of Cat Island, he is the eldest son of two veteran educators. He is a 1977 graduate of Queens College, the Bahamas, and the current head of the Department for Psychology, Sociology, and Social Work at the University of the Bahamas. Dr. Adderley completed his doctoral studies at the University of South Carolina and later earned a law degree from the University of Wolverhampton in the United Kingdom. He specializes in helping organizations improve productivity by enhancing human performance. His focus areas include strategic on-job coaching for managers, work personality assessment, and performance coaching, leadership assessment, and situational leadership. His current professional research, focuses on work stress, bullying in the workplace, and organizational resilience. His hobbies include traveling and genealogy. He will present to us for 15 minutes, and then we will receive another 5 minutes of questions. I now present to you Dr. Adderley to make his presentation.
Good night, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Good night, we can hear you.
Great, great. So this is a really good opportunity for me to just say a welcome to all of my brothers and sisters from the Caribbean. This is a fantastic opportunity, and I really appreciate being asked to come and share with you for a few minutes. I am the product of two educators, and so I spent most of my adolescent life walking around certain schools. So it was nice to see AF Adley because I spent so many years there. And also my father was the principal at LW Young. So Stephen, when you spoke earlier in the breakout session, I identified with you because I spent so many years at LW Young in the late 1970s and the early 1980s. But today we want to talk about self-care. And I think it's so critical because as an educator myself, I never thought that I would get into education, but as an educator myself, we have to take care of ourselves, because if we don't take care of ourselves, who will? And so I want to get right into the presentation. Like I have got 15 minutes and then we're going to open it up to questions. So let me just share my screen and we'll get started. Okay, so you're taking care of teachers. The teachers are taking care of students, but who's taking care of you? That's an important question. I want you all to think about the last time that you flew on an airplane. And God knows I'm really excited about the opportunity to travel, because it seems as if it's been a long while since I've been on an airplane. But one of the interesting things is that just before takeoff, the stewardess will say to you, place the oxygen mask on yourself first before helping small children or others who may need your assistance. Now, what is this saying to us? It's saying to us that you have to take care of yourself. In fact, you have to take care of yourself first. If you do not take care of yourself first, you are not going to be able to take care of other people. And I think for many, many years, we've gotten into the habit of taking care of other people, making sacrifices, putting other people in front of us. But if you are going to rise each day to teach, if you're going to be motivated to continue this journey as an educator, then you've got to begin to prioritize your life and you've got to take charge. And so I want you to begin thinking it's nothing to do with being selfish. It's having to do with taking care of yourself. Take care of yourself before dealing with other people. So let's talk about self-care. Take care of your basic needs first if you want your stress relief activities to be effective. So you can engage and you can incorporate all of the stress relief activities that you want, but if you're not taking care of yourself, it's going to be ineffective. You have to make a conscious decision to promote your own physical, mental, and emotional health. No one else can do it for you. There's a tendency for us to rely on other people to make our lives easier, but we have got to take charge of our lives and we've got to do what we need to do to get ahead. When we talk about self-care, I want you to realize that there are a couple of things that are involved in self-care. First of all, if we look at the definition of it, self-care has to do with a multi-dimensional, multifaceted process of purposeful engagement in strategies that promote healthy functioning and enhance well-being. So let's break this down. First of all, multi-dimensional. So when we're talking about self-care, self-care involves several dimensions. So if you're just doing one thing, that's not enough because self-care involves several dimensions. It's also multifaceted. It means that it has many sides. And so I want you to begin thinking in terms of a 360 degree, that from all angles, you have to begin to focus on what's happening with you. It's also a process. It's a series of steps and purposeful. You have to show determination to resolve. You have to be determined. Like I said earlier, if you are not doing it, then no one else can do it for you. Self-care is vital for building resilience towards stresses. And let's focus on stresses for a short period of time. Stresses are the things that produce stress in our lives. And so we have to take an active role in, first of all, identifying stresses and then making a conscious effort to deal with the stresses as they come up in our lives. That is how we become resilient. Resilient is the ability to bounce back after you've been knocked down by stressors in your life. If you are serious about self-care, you have to see it as a priority, not a luxury. Sometimes I speak to people and they say, well, you know, I just can't afford it. I just can't, you know, I can't deal with it right now. No, self-care is not a luxury. Self-care is a priority. It goes back to what I said about getting on the airplane. You have to take care of yourself first. It is also important to assess how you are caring for yourself in different domains to ensure you are caring for your mind, your body, and spirit. So if we want to look at it, see, just working on your mind is not enough. Just working on your body is not enough. And just attending religious ceremonies is not enough. There has to be a combination of all of the facets in order for you to have good self-care. So let's look at the stress bucket. What are you packing into your stress bucket every day as administrators? And I want you to begin, if you look at this diagram, you will see that well-being happens about when you've got about halfway full, your bucket is halfway full. And what this means is that you've got enough stress to keep the momentum going. You see, because I want you to think in terms of tuning a guitar. If you tighten the strings, they pop. But if the strings are not tight enough, then you don't get any music. And so self-care is a balancing act. If you don't have enough stress in your life, you're not going to be motivated. But if you've got too much stress, you're still not going to be motivated. So ask yourself, what are the stressors? And the stressors are the things that produce stress in your life every day. What are the stressors that you are packing into your bucket every day? If you are packing more stressors into your bucket than you have the ability to deal with, then you're going to be all stressed out. So look at the list of stressors. Do you carry a heavy workload? Is there illness that you're dealing with, you or a significant other? Have you received negative feedback? Is there conflict? Is there uncertainty? Are you unable to get your work done because of interruptions, deadlines? Are there unclear expectations? Are there financial worries? All of these things contribute to stress in your life. So let's start looking at this whole aspect of self-care. And I want you to think in terms of the Olympic rings. There are 5 circles and they are all interlinked. And this is what must happen for us to work at our best. We need to have optimal levels in all areas of our lives. Each of those circles represent a different area of our life, and we have got to address those areas in order to keep the momentum going and to take care of ourselves. So what are some of these areas? Okay, well, the first, physical, the second, social, the third, mental, the fourth, spiritual, and the fifth, emotional. And let's work through each of those. So physical self-care. There is a strong connection between the body and the mind. As a clinical psychologist in private practice, I would say that 80% of my referrals come from a general practitioner. Persons who are overloaded with stress end up going to a general practitioner because of body ailments. A lot of times these body ailments have no root cause in the body and they are stress related. So there is a strong connection between the body and the mind. So I want you to ask yourself these questions as I go through it, and I want you to be honest with yourself. Are you getting adequate sleep? Are you getting adequate sleep? Are you getting 7 to 8 hours of sleep a night? Is your diet fueling your body well? So are you eating the right foods? Are you getting the right nutrition? Are you taking charge of your health? For those persons who are on medication, are you using your medication as you should? Are you keeping up with your medical appointments? And then fourth, are you getting enough exercise? You see, because if you are going to be out there combating stress on a day-to-day basis, then you've got to prepare your body physically to be able to take on the stress. So sleep, diet, medication, exercise, these are critical. Are you taking care of yourself physically? Secondly, social self-care. Now, socialization is key to self-care. And I think most of us have realized how important socialization is during this COVID pandemic. Previously, if you stood away from a crowd, people thought that you were playing cute. They would say that you were standoffish. But we know the importance now of the socialization process. Human beings are social creatures. We gravitate to one another. And this is why in a pandemic, we're having such a struggle, because the minute we see one another, we want to reach out. So let me ask you, are you building strong relationships? You see, because self-care involves social self-care, and it involves establishing close connections. If you do not get along with people, if you have no one that you can depend on, if you have no one that you can build a relationship with, then that can be a very, very lonely world. And most of the issues that we are seeing in our clinics has to do with loneliness, has to do with anxiety, has to do with depression, and it has to do with the fact that we're unable to reach and keep in contact with people. So, questions. Are you getting enough face-to-face time with your friends? This is critical. No man is an island. We need each other. So are you getting face-to-face time? And what are you doing to nurture your relationships with friends and family? You see, self-care means that there's some relationships that are not up to par. What are you doing? Some of us are in our homes with significant others, and the relationships are not as good as they can be. Some of us are not fostering good relationships with our children. So it's critical. Ask yourself, what is it that you need to do? Because part of the self-care process means that you have to prioritize and you have to work at improving the relationships with important people in your life. Mental self-care. Your thinking greatly influences your psychological well-being. There was a research project that was done several years ago where it was decided that each person in the office would approach the receptionist at 5-minute intervals and say to her, "Are you feeling okay? You certainly don't look well." And even though the receptionist came to work feeling well, by 11 o'clock that morning, she had asked to go home because she had started to feel bad. So the way that you think influences your physical being as well. So let's ask this, what are you doing to keep yourself mentally alert? Are you making enough time for activities that mentally stimulate you? Big question. Are you mentally stimulated? Are you doing proactive things to help you stay mentally healthy? There's this famous phrase that says, a mind is a terrible thing to waste. What are you doing to keep learning? I saw an interesting bit of research recently that said that there has been more advancement in the last 30 years in technology than in the previous 3,000 years. And all of us know that the challenge that we faced last year, as a psychology professor, I went from teaching face-to-face and having to learn platforms like Moodle and Zoom overnight. So we're realizing that to keep ourselves on par, to keep ourselves alert as educators, we must keep learning. We must keep learning. As the semester came to an end for me this week, I have to now start preparing for summer sessions and also for the fall. But the thing is that there's so much to learn because our students are requiring more. And so I have to continue to stimulate myself. So as educators, are you stimulating yourself continuously? Spiritual self-care. Are you developing a deeper sense of meaning? And I'm not saying that you've got to be a Christian or you've got to be, but my question is that, are you developing a deeper sense of meaning? What questions do you ask yourself about your life and your experience? Erik Erikson, who's a famous psychologist, talks about getting to a certain point in life and looking back and asking yourself, have you been generative, meaning have you produced, or have you been stagnant, meaning that you've just stayed at one spot? And this is something that we have to ask ourselves continuously. What are we doing? What are we learning? What are we taking from life experiences? Every experience that you have, you should ask yourself, what are the lessons that I've learned? And are you engaging in spiritual practices that you find fulfilling? There's a spiritual component to self-care, and many of us have neglected this aspect of it. Finally, emotional self-care. Do you have healthy coping skills to deal with uncomfortable emotions like anger, anxiety, and sadness? How are you processing your emotions? You see, because a lot of us internalize our feelings. We don't deal with it, we don't express it, but we keep it bottled up on the inside. That is not good for you. But the thing is that we have to find effective coping strategies. So ask yourself, how do you process your emotions? Do you incorporate activities into your life that help you feel recharged? Have you discovered what you are passionate about? Okay, and as we talked, I found the breakout room that I was in quite interesting. And the question, what do you do to motivate yourself? Okay, and there were some good answers: creating a balance. There's a spiritual component, building relationships. Okay, remembering why you chose education as a field. But I want to add a couple more to you, okay? I want to ask you, what gets you out of bed in the morning? Are you passionate about education? You see, because if you are not passionate about education, then you're going to find that teaching and being an administrator is going to be a big challenge for you. Let me tell you briefly what passion is all about. Passion is that love-hate relationship. It's the sort of thing where you tell yourself when you're doing it, you hate it. Why am I doing it? Why am I doing it? But as soon as you stop doing it, you jump right back into doing it. And so I go through this every year. My colleagues and I, 2-3 weeks ago, we were walking around high-fiving and saying stuff like, guess what? I can't wait, the semester, 2 weeks down, 1 week left, final exams, hooray, we're finished. But as soon as it's finished, those of us who are passionate start preparing for the fall semester. And that is what passion is all about. So I ask you, are you passionate about your job? Do you incorporate activities into your life that help you feel recharged? And have you discovered what your true passions are all about? So let's sum up. Your self-care plan. You need to customize it to your individual needs. No two people are alike, and so no two people will have the exact plan. What are your needs? Which areas of your life need some more attention and self-care? Now you got to remember, if you go back and you think about that Olympic flag and the 5 circles, if you devote more time to one of those areas, it means that it's going to take away some time from another area. So if you are into socialization, that's going to take away from some stuff. If you spend all your time in the gym, that's going to take away from some areas. If you spend all your time in church, that's going to take away from some relationships. So you've got to seek balance. The same way that the ring exists, I need you to begin to focus on it. I also need you to reassess your life often, on a daily, on a weekly basis. When situations change, you have to reassess. Keep reassessing. What is the learning thing? You know, when I started school back in the 1960s, I think there were some royal readers. And at the end of every story, there was a thing that says, what is the motto of the story? That is what we've got to do with our lives. Each experience we go through, we should reassess and we should ask, what have we learned? Make self-care a priority. Make it a priority. And when you're caring for all aspects of yourself, you'll find that you are able to operate more effectively and more efficiently. So in closing, I want us to begin thinking, what is it that we need to do? What is it that we need to put into our plans in order to address the issues that are keeping us back from living a healthy lifestyle? If you do not take care of yourself, then no one else will do it for you. If you notice that you are neglecting a certain aspect of your life, create immediately a plan for change. And start by identifying one small step you can take to begin caring for yourself better. And so the next time that you're on an airplane and the stewardess says, in the event of unexpected turbulence, a gas mask will drop from the ceiling, you are to place that mask on your face first before attending to other people. Even if it's a child or an adult or someone who's disabled, the emphasis is on taking care of you first. That now puts you in a better position to take care of other people. Thank you, and let's roll with the questions.
Dr. Adderley, we are so grateful for your presentation this evening. I found myself making notes as to what are my stresses. And we are all in a profession where you are correct. We are taking care of everyone but ourselves. And so your presentation tonight opened our eyes And I'm sure if we are all honest with ourselves this evening, we all have stresses. What you said in your presentation is so true. We need to know that taking care of ourselves is a priority, and it's certainly not a luxury. And so I must say, from your presentation, I have gathered that I am number one and I'm important. And so taking care of me is indeed very important. And so at this time, the floor is opened for questions.
Dr. Hadley, I'd also like to chime in right here on a very awesome presentation. I really enjoyed the portion that says that, you know, it's not a luxury, but a priority that we take care of ourselves. As I listened, I was able to observe that the self-care regiment is very close to the dimensions of health. And I wish I could have taken a picture of that bucket and the pictorial, the image with all of the different stresses on the side of it. And I guess if there was a question that I had to start off, it would be, what might be some good suggestions for us to try to pour some of that out of the bucket so it stays at about midway?
Yeah, you've got to develop some coping skills. So let's talk about it. Physical stressors require some physical activity. So a number of you have mentioned exercising. Exercising is important to address physical stress. But then we've got some stuff like relationship issues. That is a big stress. Some of us are living with relationships that really need to end. There's some people that we just need to cut out of our lives. They're negative and they produce stress. And so for those in those situations, you've got to wise up. You've got to encourage yourself to take the necessary steps to end relationships that are not positive for you. Then we've got situations like a lot of us carry emotional baggage for extended periods of time. There's so many people who walk around with anger, okay, because of things that have happened to them from childhood. I'll give you an example. I was dealing with a client recently, and she had actually been divorced almost 50 years and had not gotten over that relationship yet. And it's amazing that this lady is in her 70s and still carrying the anger for a relationship that ended 50 years ago. So what must her life have been like for 50 years because she did not address it? There's some folks who just need counseling. And I am sure it's similar in the Bahamas, in many of the Caribbean islands, where we still do not take advantage of counseling situations. There's something about mental health that is supposed to be kept away from the public. And so many of us carry around anguish for years and years and years. Now, we also know that there's some negative ways that people cope with stresses. We drink, we smoke, we become abusive, okay? These are the things that we have to reduce in our lives, and we have to promote healthy coping skills. And so there may be a time when we get back together and we discuss coping strategies to deal with stresses in our lives. And that would take that could take another session. But I think that's important. We also have to understand that each of us have our own way of dealing with stuff. And so we have to find out what works for us. Right? So yeah, so in a nutshell, you have to begin to figure out what is the best coping mechanism for you and apply that coping mechanism to the situation. One quick example again, I had a lady who I saw in the grocery store a couple of weeks ago, and I asked her how she was doing, and she told me she was stressed out. And I said, so how are you coping? And she said, oh, I drink. She said, when I go home at night, I take a half pint of gin and I drink until I go to sleep. Okay. Now the thing is that what are her stressors? She's raising 3 adult male children. well into their 30s. And so my issue is that why are you letting 30-year-old male children have that impact on you so that you are drinking? Okay. And so we had to get into some serious counseling to help her to understand that part of the strategy for her self-care is that she has to deal and cut some ties with these adult young men who are living in her home, because she was falling down and they were still surviving. And so now that we've gotten to the point where she realizes that she has to take care of herself, one of the first things that she did was she had to tell them that they had to go. They had to leave the home. That was the only way that she was able to survive.
Yeah, those toxic relationships. Just before we go, I wanted to pay the compliment to you. In your presentation, you talked about passion, and in this profession, so many persons, we find that, they don't see it as a job, as a vocation or ministry. They see it as a job. And it reminds me of Dr. Miles Monroe, who talks about your convictions, which turn into your passion, which ultimately drives you towards your purpose. So I found that to be very, very thought-provoking and in line with what it is we need to do in terms of self-care and then purpose as educators as well. Dr. Adderley, I think we would have exhausted our time for the questions. And I think at this time, it brings us to the end of our question section for this evening. We'd like to remind all of the, I'd like to remind all of the participants to complete the evaluation form in the chat. And I now send it back over to Eloise, Ms. Wims.
Once again, colleague, this has been truly an awesome evening. We have garnered a lot, and we encourage you to share what you would have learned with other colleagues and invite them to our next meeting next week, Thursday. Enjoy your evening. Harcourt.
Thanks, Eloise. Thanks, Eloise. It's been a pleasure being your moderators this evening. Before we leave, we just ask you to continue to remember President Curtis Graves and our brothers and sisters in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, to please keep them in prayer. Our association is currently preparing some donations that we plan to send shortly. We also would like to encourage our brothers and sisters in CAPS to do likewise. We want to say a special thanks to Mr. Aaron from Jamaica, to Raj and the tech team from RSC. Please be sure to join us next week when we will be presenting on motivation and mentoring your inner circle, the admin team. We will be featuring our dynamic former superintendent, Miss Dressler Sherman. Stay safe and be blessed. Good night.
Good night.